Alrighty, so I'm a Muslim. We've got Stephen, who's an atheist, and we're going to talk about white people's issues. I don't look very white, do I? But white people are my people. I'm a Brit, and I don't feel great if any part of society is not feeling good about themselves. And I think increasingly white people are feeling under threat. Would you agree, Stephen?
I think we live in a very disruptive period in history. There definitely are. I mean, the demographic crisis of our age is just cards on the table. White Western countries are undergoing rapid, unseen before demographic change, and this is leading to a crisis of identity. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's not cool, but so we're going to be talking about kind of Muslim that I am, that even Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson, I can't get the reference, but I remember Tommy Robinson quoting that if all Muslims are my kind of Muslim, which is Ahmadi Muslim, he wouldn't have a problem with Muslims. Why is this important? Really quickly, I think the problems white people are facing is going to get really extreme. Like when they're having very few kids. What I'm seeing, like the Nazi salute with that Elon Musk did, the whole situation is going to get really, really extreme, and we better
Oh,
stop.
just a minute. That wasn't a Nazi salute. You know that, don't you?
Yeah, dude, it's a Nazi salute. He's not an idiot.
No,
He's not
come
an
on.
idiot. He's not just. Do you see me
He,
going around just like?
oh, come on. No. Oh my God, you don't believe that. He's an autist.
Okay, go on then.
He's literally an autistic guy. If you watch the full appearance of him going
He's a
up on that
billionaire,
stage,
richest. He literally doing rocket science. He's not an
yeah,
idiot.
he's awkward as hell. Anyway, look, if you look at the
Okay,
full
go on then.
thing, honestly, I implore you at some point, going back and look at him coming on that stage. He's just like he doesn't know how to control his body, and so he's like exuberant. Trump's just been
He did it twice.
inaugurated. Yeah, my heart goes out to you. He's like grabs his chest. My heart goes out to you. I mean, do you honestly think he's like literally signaling National Socialism? I mean, come on. Even Benjamin Netanyahu said Elon Musk is not a
Even
Nazi.
Benjamin, the Zionists fund like people like Tommy Robinson people. You know that, right?
Well, I'm interested in that conspiracy.
Oh,
Sorry, I'm sick, by the way, everybody. So
yeah, I appreciate you being here.
forgive me if my voice is going a bit.
Yeah.
Look, I'm interested in that conspiracy angle. That, for instance, like the Jews drawing swastikas on their own synagogues and that kind of thing. That Nazism is good for like good for driving up. The anti-Semitism is actually an industry that is good for Jews because it makes them recognize their own identity. I think I've heard Jews talking about this before. That like
Hmm.
Judaism is like it thrives in response to anti-Semitism. So I wouldn't be surprised if like the ADL were behind characters, like the GDL or overt neo-Nazis.
Hmm. Okay. Let's play this. I always
Yeah.
want there to be a clear point to these videos. My clear point is that I was trying to make is something like I think we can agree, like, okay, I think we agree that there's this existential threat in many ways, not like biologically in terms of existence, in terms of belonging, even psychological, those kind of threats white people are facing, and it's getting more extreme, and then the reactions are going to be more extreme. And in short, I think white people are going down an extreme route that's not going to help them at all. Just complaining that other people having babies and not having babies themselves is not going to solve it. And I want to kind of say, hey, like, you don't need an enemy. You just need to solve your problems. You don't need Muslims as your enemy. We're not your enemy. We are on your side, as you'll hear in this video. That's kind of the angle I'm coming at. Let's play the video. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea that peace isn't meant to...
Oh, I should say this is a friend of mine. He's also an Ahmadi Muslim. Yeah, I suppose. Let's make this as loud as possible because I can really hear it. Okay.
And this idea that peace isn't mentioned in the Quran, well, Islam actually means peace, as your listeners well know. But the thing is that what's happened actually is that these Wahhabists that you're talking about, and these terrorists, they've taken certain verses of the Quran completely out of context, and those verses that relate to war only relate to defensive war, and they've taken them in a completely different context, and they're abetted by certain people who are Christians and whatever, who want to attack the religion.
You are not the first person to tell me that these are wild misinterpretations, that what was seen to be defensive is taken to be offensive. I've heard this before. But would you not accept there must be a problem within the religion if certain people choose to take that interpretation?
Well, I would say that there's a problem with the adherents of the religion, not the religion itself.
Okay.
I mean, because what I would say to you is, I mean, if you look back to Islam in Spain, Islam reached the shores of Europe in Spain, and that was a beacon of light for the entirety of Europe, which led to the Reformation and the Renaissance in Europe. When Europe was in the Dark Ages. So Islam, is a force for good and for knowledge and for enlightenment.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's going through a medieval phase in certain parts of the world, like Saudi Arabia. All countries that are supported by us, as in terms of arms deals and all sorts of things. We support the Saudis.
I know. Just tell me, because I mean I know the Ahmadiyas. Let's just cheer a few people up who are listening to this and feeling very depressed. Just tell me that as a Muslim, you are committed to integration, to being British, and to driving out the bad guys.
But more than that, we want to make a positive contribution to any country in which we settle, and we abhor these acts of terror, and we want to actually be the agents to change, so that within the religion we actually provide the theological arguments against these people.
I love it.
We're the only people to
Mahmood, that's the best phone call I possibly could have had. Thank you.
Okay, so I mean, Nigel knows about us. We're actually even known in places like Israel. We have good relationships with the governments there, while the other Muslims don't. Then we're persecuted by the Palestinians. So this is a really interesting situation. And just to clarify, when my friend was asked, do you support the country? We literally, in our kind of Boy Scouts version of, the Muslim version of it, we stand up and we pledge, to help the country in whichever way we can. So that's a regular part of who we are, and that's how we're brought up as Ahmadi Muslims. Anyway, that's our background, and the point is that we're not. There isn't an enemy here. We're trying to be part of the solution with white people. We're supporting white people. We're supporting brown people. We're supporting black people. Whatever it is. Anyway, your initial thoughts, Stephen.
I did ask one of the AIs. I think when you sent me this, I don't know anything about your group, Khaled. So I did ask them what are these Ahmadiyya Muslims. Would you like to tell? Can you just in a few words describe the difference?
Sure. So first of all, we believe in that. First of all, you should know that all Muslims believe in all the other previous religions. So, so we believe in Christianity, Judaism. The difference is that we're like the equivalent of, let's say, the followers of Jesus at the time of Jesus. We're a minority. If to put it in a phrase, what makes us stand out, and where other Muslims find us annoying for this phrase, we say love for all, hatred for none, and it's very much like the evolution that Judaism had. The Jews at the time of Jesus were really, eye for an eye and really kind of vengeful people at the time, and humanity always goes through the same evolution. So they get too aggressive, as modern Muslims are at the moment, and the Ahmadiyya Muslims are like the the predicted by Prophet Muhammad to rejuvenate Islam, revive or fix the misunderstandings, like the Wahhabi kind of people, the extremists who just like being violent towards other people. So that might explain. So we believe in a second coming of Jesus. I don't want to get too technical, but we believe he's coming. Come and we're reviving true Islam is a very short answer, and we don't.
So your Messiah has already come.
He's already come. Yeah.
Who is he?
Yeah, why not? Let's go into that for a second.
Yeah, just briefly. I mean,
yeah, I'll get a picture. Just it's nice to have a picture while we're.
Was it Jesus? In his...
No, so there's never literal second coming. Even Jesus himself explained that in the Bible. You don't have literal second coming. So I don't want to go technical, but the Jews at the time asked him, like, why aren't you supposed to come after the second coming of Elijah, an old prophet? And he said, yeah, that's John the Baptist. He's the metaphorical second coming. I'm trying to get I have to stop and then I have to start, share screen.
It's interesting that the Christians should actually believe in a third coming, shouldn't they? Because Jesus, according to them, has already been once, went away, came back like after 3 days, and then claimed that he'd be coming again. So it'd be a third coming.
I suppose, yeah. They didn't count properly. So if you search Promised Messiah, the number one search would be this person, a couple of images, and then
okay, there it is.
So what's technically special about us? We're we're the only united group of Muslims around the world. You might think Muslims are just one group, but they're not really. We have like one leader, and all the other Muslims are quite kind of jealous, really, because they want that one leader called a Khalifa. That's what makes us quite different.
All right, so according to the AI, I've just found what it's told me. It told me that you guys specifically reject violent jihad, advocate for peaceful means of spreading Islam, which they call the jihad of the pen. Yeah. So is this the guy who, I know, canonized this idea or something?
Yeah, so
okay.
It came in prophecies by Prophet Muhammad himself that the Muslims would go in a decayed form. The mosque will be full, but the faith would have left them. And they'll be fighting each other and lots of things like that, and so they'll need this kind of reformation. So,
sounds good. Sounds okay. Yeah, no, it sounds okay then, Khalid. I mean, the problem is, you see, I mean, we're getting to the crux of it. I mean, I don't know if we're here to just like hold up your sect of Islam as not the problem. I'm happy to do that if that's what you want to do.
Well, no, the whole point is how do we get to solutions? Because like I was saying, I don't want white nationalists. So I think it's going to become only more extreme because white people's problems are not being solved. And so they're going to go for more scapegoating, more aggression, and it's not going to be good for them. It's not going to being angry at other people doesn't solve your problems, and it's not going to be good for society. And I'm trying to get to a place where they don't feel Muslims are the enemy, and if they have one less enemy, they might even learn. Because you know me, I think religious people have solved all the problems that white people have at the moment. They don't have new problems really. I don't think they're just rehashed problems.
Well, I mean, we do have a lot of problems. Obviously, we have lots of issues, but I mean, let's address the elephant in the room. Is the problems within the Muslim community are issues too that we don't want in our societies. So like, you guys might be okay, you Ahmadiyas or whatever, but like Farage is saying there in that clip, he's saying, I mean, let's not gloss over the fact that there are problematic, groups of Muslims. So
what are the problems? Grooming? What kind of problems are you talking about?
Sure, that one, but David Atherton, who's a journalist, regularly points out that this statistic that Of the 100 terrorist murders since 2000, 94 of them have been committed by Islamists in the UK.
Depends what you call terrorism. Do you call terrorism?
No,
I mean,
murders, terrorist
it's not
murders.
great, but if you call what the US does around the world, killing millions of people, is that terrorism? Depends what you call terrorism, isn't it?
Well, I
But
mean,
yeah,
let's
I
not.
don't really. Yeah, I kind of don't want to go that angle. Kind of like, okay, if Muslims do something bad, it's bad anyway, whatever it is, right?
Sure. I mean, there's what I'm getting is it's not. We get down to like the Claire Core argument, which where she says, "Oh, it's just an irrational. You are just irrational haters of Muslims. You're just Islamophobes," and she comes out with the word Islamophobe, an irrational hatred of Muslims. It's not irrational when people have problems with this section of a community that are, that don't behave well, that have had problem.
Okay, so so we always want to try to take the best of any situation. You want to learn something rather than just complain about it. So, for example, there's white people are suffering from lack of relationships and children, and probably a lot of
Sure.
other fundamentals, right? And religious people, generally speaking, have a lot less of that. Even Christians, I always say that. Just don't worry about becoming a Muslim. Just be a good Christian. You're going to solve a lot of your
Sure.
problems. So, and then you look at the Muslims. Are they all part of grooming gangs? Clearly not. In fact, the latest statistics show, and it's not surprising, it's mainly white people that do that, right? But not like way overrepresented,
Well,
but they're like a
come
little
on.
bit more.
This is a per capita argument,
Yeah,
isn't
but
it?
it's like I'm not going to go now to white people and go, "You're all grooming gangs." I'm not even going to waste my time with that. That's a really pointless argument. Like, how does it help anybody to say that? What
Yeah,
you
and
do is you
I would never
those-
say every Pakistani is a groomer, obviously.
yeah, and it doesn't even solve your problem because it's just like essentially scapegoating instead of solving your action. What are you going to do about it? If you really wanted to solve the problem, you would go to identify the kinds of Pakistanis that are doing that. You would also identify the kind of white people that are doing it, and then you would try to solve. But did you, for example, identify any particular characteristics of white people who are in grooming gangs? Did you do any research in it? You didn't, right? Because nobody really cares. It's just a distraction from actually solving a problem, isn't it? What do you think?
Look, I think the grooming gangs were a real. Look, we
A real
can't.
problem that happened many years ago, rehashed by Elon Musk for whatever racist, interesting thing that's going on in his mind at the moment. And then people are just going along with it. What's the point of that?
It's a real problem in the UK. Okay, that there are large areas of the UK that have been taken over by. You go to Bradford these days, and it is just. It's a shithole. Let's be honest, it's an absolute shithole, and there is
That would
there
be
are
most of outside London, isn't that true?
sure, but there are problems in these communities, Khalid, that where
Okay.
certain groups of Muslim men believe that like white girls are for the taking because they're just sluts, and this is how they're looked upon. This is how they talk about it,
So
and it's okay
in
to
the
treat them like sluts because they act like sluts, and so this
That's
leads
you.
to the other thing.
You could replace the thing about you said certain groups of Muslim men. We could replace that phrase with certain groups of white men also think that white girls are sluts, right?
Sure, they
You
do.
could have the same sentence and it'll be more true when you say certain groups of white men. That's what the statistics are already out, right? So but I don't bother with that. It's just a waste of my time. Like it's not like you're not even interested in it because you didn't even research the white people who are doing it. If you're really interested in that. Now, there is an easy solution, by the way, not an easy solution, but the solution is that these white girls, where are their parents? How are they being taken advantage of? that nobody's taking care of them, right? And they're getting the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm not blaming them, but I'm blaming a fundamental societal problem, right? That let girls go out drunk and then, you know, midnight, even if they're not being groomed, they're putting themselves in really precarious situations. Like, how does that make sense? I couldn't even imagine having my daughter do that. You know what I mean? So that's the real solution if you're actually interested. I don't think you're really. I'm not blaming you, but I think you're just jumping on like a bandwagon. You're letting yourself be distracted, and you're not solving white people's problems, which is the thing I'm really interested in.
I understand. Obviously, you don't see that you don't see the demographic problem that our countries are being swamped by outsiders.
That's a
as
different thing. So okay. So
all
let's
right, you
say,
accept it's real though. It's real though. That's
yeah,
real. We're being swamped by
I feel
outsiders.
bad for white. Okay, so let's agree.
Okay.
Can we put the grooming gang? That argument doesn't even hold.
Yeah, I don't want to
right?
talk about grooming gangs. I don't like it.
Cool.
The reason why I've not looked into it is because I do hate it when everybody brings it up. It makes me sick to my stomach.
Sure.
Whoever's
And
doing it.
Let's agree that white people are dying out. They feel like their culture's dying.
We're not dying
their
out. We're being
hijack-
overrun.
You put in your own words.
We're being
and I'll
diluted.
probably agree with you.
Western countries we're importing the rest of the world, and we're small countries. Like UK's small. It's a small island. Okay,
And I
we're
agree.
importing millions at a rapid pace, and this is shocking.
And I agree. Economically, that's not
Okay.
even good, because what you're doing, we're importing. Well, say we. I'm not even in the UK anymore, but we're importing low-level labor to take the jobs that white people are refusing to do. Maybe you can correct me, right? Okay, or refuse white people, even brown people like my family are refusing to do because they rather do high-level jobs. And that overall, and loads of people are leaving the country. Would you agree? Like, loads of people are trying to leave. Young people are trying to leave the country, like especially intelligent people.
Sure.
So there'll be like a net, like kind of lowering of the IQ and ability to create wealth, because you can't just have like all dustbin cleaners and whatever, or strawberry pickers. That's not going to increase the value, the GDP, the output of the country. So yeah, I'm on your side. That's not great for the country.
It's existential. Is more than just not great though. I think
Okay, which bit's the existential bit?
The existential bit is that at last estimate, I think it's around 40% of live births in the UK are to women who were foreign born already.
Okay, yes. So that's the existential bit that I was talking about. That white people are not reproducing, and Muslims are, religious people are. Yeah, sure. And I want to help white people. I don't like people feeling sad, and it's not great. It's not going to, that kind of imbalance is not going to be great.
I once looked at this on a stream with Claire, though. It's not necessarily just the case that Islam causes people to reproduce. I think the birth rate in Bosnia is 1.35. I think Kosovo is 97% Muslim. The birth rate there is something like 1.5.
Okay.
This is well below. The birth rate in the UK overall is 1.44.
Cool. A lot. It depends how religious you are as well. So Bosnians are quite famously don't even wear headscarves and stuff like that. So you're gonna have to practice the religion, yeah. And which is what Nigel was talking about, like people who don't like adhere to the religion itself, like you just do anything you want.
So it's basically, it's not as simple as just like, I mean, like even Claire Cordes suggests that bringing in a like atheist version of Islam would just solve all the problems. It's not as clear cut as in that.
Yeah, I do think you need to believe in God. It's essential part of the mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, but so Islam is not just like an antidote to birth rates. Like if we.
I would say following Islam is not just calling yourself a Muslim. That kind of works with anything, isn't it? Like I go to the gym and I just watch other people work out. That's not going to work out, is it? You're not going to. You're going to actually practice it.
Yeah, I think we're seeing birth rates decline across the developed world. It's not just West; it's the developed world. This is why we see it in South Korea. We're having the biggest crisis of all. It's like below 1. So, and therefore, we would suggest that unless it's, I know, something in the water, then it's like about wealth and modernity and the cost of having kids, coupled with atheism, probably lack of religion. It's a multifaceted thing. I don't think anybody has the exact answer as to what is going on, but it's definitely the divide isn't necessarily between religious and non-religious. Although I'll grant you, religious people probably have more.
But you just agreed that it basically was. It's generally in those areas, isn't it?
I think it's poor countries and rich countries where the biggest divide is, clearly. Like they're having kids in Africa.
Okay.
They're not having them in America.
Yeah, that's it. That is true. Yeah, and I would put it down.
We talked about it, didn't we, on another stream? I think that, like in America, if you wish to have health insurance for your family, it's something like a family health insurance policy is like $20,000 a year, and so or for an individual, it's something like $12,000 per year, and so these. I can understand a young person in America. I actually asked like a Zoomer friend of mine who's like 22 years old. I said, how do you pay health insurance? And he's like, I don't. And like, so what happens if you get sick? He's like, well, I just have to hope that I don't. Yeah. So I'm like, so how would you go about then having a kid? You know, be like, and he's like, well, I just have to hope the kid doesn't get sick. But this is a concern. And you kind of can't just have children without health insurance. So there's all these problems in societies with regulations.
I don't have health insurance at the moment, but I probably do. I probably can afford it. It's relatively cheap in Jordan, but yeah. But we kind of have that approach. It's like, we'll be fine. Like, we don't even want to go to the hospital anyway. Like, why do I want to go to the hospital? Like, I literally avoid hospitals because they're crap mostly. So it's not so bad. It sounds really weird, and it's like, but I think, I'm trying to make a bit of a kind of a religious kind of point here, is that religious people just go for it. They just go for it. They don't go, if this might happen, and oh no, we absolutely have to have everything lined up before we can have children, whatever. It's like, no, we're just going to go for it, and it'll be all right. We'll figure it out when we get there.
Sure. And I can appreciate there's some value to that.
But I do want to focus on the fact that I do want to make it like, does it make any difference if we have more Muslims like Ahmadi Muslims? I kind of like, well, there's got to be an angle to each show, not just kind of going any direction, right? And so we don't have grooming gangs, right? Because we have, we don't have zero problems. There are weirdos everywhere, right? We can't like, you know, account for absolutely every weirdo, right? But we have like essentially Boy Scout groups for, not Boy Scout, what's the word? Boy Scouts, is it? Like, what? Yeah, it's just the word. Like the thing where boys goes to these clubs and girls get on the brownies and all that kind of stuff. We have that for all different ages. I'm even part of the 40+ group for men, right? And we're constantly taught, don't do this bad thing, whatever. We're part of communities, healthy communities, people who have, I think it's important to recognize that people who are part of grooming gangs are not healthy in some ways and missing something in some ways. And I kind of think, like, why would Muslims be part of grooming gangs to get sex if religious people have the most sex? It doesn't make sense, right? So they should be underrepresented. And so my point is, if you're trying to fulfill the needs of the community, the individual within the community, making sure they get married and stuff like that. We've got all, you know, systems. We've got so I, like, for example, I just turned up to Ghana, and I phoned up somebody. I never knew anybody in Ghana, but I phoned up somebody within the Ahmadiyya community, and they said, "Yeah, come down, we'll sort you out." And then I got in touch with a matchmaker, and he, found a wife for me. She said yes. We're married now, right? The point is, we're a lot more organized than pretty much all other Muslims, and therefore we can fulfill people's needs. And my point is, why would you care about this? Well, I don't know. Maybe there's a solution or something, or be a religious Christian, because I know you hate being told that maybe you should become a Muslim. So just be a religious Christian, emulate or copy some of these things. Have all of these things. Have matchmakers.
Yeah, you make it sound like going and picking up a suit, Khalid, or something.
Well, it
Going
should
and
be easy, shouldn't
selecting
it?
a
Isn't it
suit.
better if it's easy?
Well, I mean, I've had quite. I'm not boasting, but I've dated. I've had a few girlfriends, and struggle to find one that's suitable yet. So, I
What
am.
you boast? What's there to boast about that? I don't
No, I'm not
understand.
boasting. I'm not. I'm not. I'm always conscious of the fact that the incel crisis is real, and I'm not an incel. I don't struggle with that if I don't
Oh,
wish
I see
to.
what you mean.
So I don't I seem like I'm boasting towards young men who are incels who struggle.
Yeah. So I
My
get where you're
problem is that
coming
I've not
from.
found one
You
who's
go.
suitable. Who I feel like basically if I'd have had to live with the first one that I'm at, that my first ever girlfriend, it'd be a nightmare. So.
Yeah. No, and I think we've talked about that. I kind of know enough white women to know that a lot of them are pretty crazy. Um, but I would say the only solution is raise those white women and raise the white men well, so that they do have the values, so that they're not crazy. And crazy means just wrong values, really. They're kind of chasing this kind of professional dream or what do you even call it, feminism, weird version of feminism that's messing them up. So that's the solution. You raise them part of a community with values, and women copy other women anyway, isn't it? Right? Like, have we talked about that? Like,
uh,
women give each other bad
yes.
advice and stuff like that. They copy each other. So you just create a community as best as you can. Don't become a Muslim. You just become a better Christian. I keep repeating myself, and you start solving your problems.
Yeah, that's easy to say. I mean, these are generational generational problems. The difficulty is you can't. I mean, you can't make society just religious again, just like by an order, like Claire Core believes. Someone could come in and just
Mm,
institute it, and everybody would suddenly
mm,
start being religious. No, they might go along with it, if it's like enforced with an iron hand. But the problem, I mean, it's our Achilles heel as white people. We do agree with this. I think the Achilles heel is our individualism, but it is a factor that it is within us. People call it the Anglo mind virus that's spread around the world and done so much damage or whatever, but it is what it is. It is individualism, and it is part of being a white person. And I don't know
mm.
what to tell you, for good or for bad. It's brought a
I
lot of
think it's
good
good
to
and
the
bad.
world.
I think the
Yeah.
individualism by itself is not entirely bad. So, in hot countries, people are more social, but they don't get things done. In colder countries, that's where more white people are because they're more suited to the colder countries. Um, they are just more, let's say, industrious. They get things done, but then they kind of go over the top and aren't social enough, and then they kill themselves. So you kind of need to find the balance, right? So I think it's not all bad. So I take that from the Quran, by the way, because the Quran talks about there's all these different groups that God created himself, right? You can see the weather creates different kinds of keep kinds of people, and they've all got good things in them. But um, you guys didn't always have this problem. You didn't have this problem when you were religious. Now, I'm not saying I agree that we can't suddenly become religious again, but you can join the few people who are religious, at least solve your own problems. You got to start from somewhere.
Or are you talking about me personally, or are we?
Yeah, let's
kind of
start
like
with you. Like, I think it's
well,
completely. I mean, we've had this discussion, but it is completely illogical not to believe in God. It just doesn't make sense. You have no situation where you've seen a computer make itself. We had this discussion. We had a whole
I
hour,
know,
but yeah.
but I can tell you, Khalid. Here's the other. I can say to you, it's completely illogical not to believe in the chocolate teapot that is currently orbiting the planet Saturn. Now, I have
I
no
don't believe
evidence.
in
I can't give you any.
chocolate.
But that's completely logical not to believe in it. It's there now, and it requires faith to believe in it.
No, but I'm not. No, no, no. Okay, so my faith, the Islamic version of faith, and I think the at least Jewish and maybe originally Christian view of faith is something that makes sense based on reason, not believe in anything, but you still have to believe it even if you can't completely prove it forever. Like, have you ever seen an atom? You haven't, but you still believe in it, right? Because there's reason to believe in it somehow, like through second, third, fourth hand, I don't know, information or something. But like through your own experience, I think you can easily distract yourself by saying, "Oh, you believe in unicorns." No, I don't. I don't believe in anything like a unicorn. What I do believe in is that I've never seen a computer make itself kind of be made into processes, you know. This is just an unreasonable belief. There's nothing that happens like that. The order doesn't come into place by itself. It never happens. There's no good reason to
Wait. You don't think God is creating the computers? So somebody is creating the computers. So that's not necessarily the best example, is it?
Okay, so you're saying because you know there's a factory somewhere.
Yes, we
Okay,
can witness the computers being made in a factory. There's nothing supernatural about them. Well, look, I understand this like cosmological claim. You're asking me to imagine where did everything come from, what's the cause of it. The first cause
I'm
has
just
to be
saying,
God.
give me a counter example, an example where something made itself that yeah, that you can say it came from random
Well,
forces. You can't say us because that's the example where the contention is.
I know, but you see, in my mind, I just can't personally get over the logical leap that whereby you say everything came from God, right? But this claim that you made that everything has to have a cause, right, only applies to everything apart from God, this God entity. Because my question is, well, where did God come from? But you see, you don't apply your logic to that question. You say, well, it doesn't apply to him.
Well, you have to have a beginning, otherwise you can't have a now. You know that, right? You've heard of
So that in
you have
itself
to have a
refutes
starting
the
point.
claim that everything has to have a cause. So you're telling me that not everything has to have a cause because God doesn't have to have one.
I'm saying you have to have a beginning, and I'm also saying we don't have any scenario where things make themselves. That's all. So we
Except
have
God.
to. Okay. Well, we have to have a beginning. Yeah. So I agree. Except for God,
So
we
when
don't
there's an
have to.
exception, it means it's not a rule. So it's kind of a self-refuting. This is my claim. Maybe I'm not smart enough to get it, but to me it's a self-refuting claim, this cosmological argument, because whenever you say, but except God, it means it's not actually a rule. So I believe that I accept it's just my autism. Okay, that I can't grasp it. But to me, both sides of the argument have as much evidence as the other. The scientists who believe in a Big Bang, and a Big Bang actually is a creation theory because it's saying everything came from something somehow, right? But the theologians and the scientists have equal amounts of evidence for their claim, which is none.
No, it's not none. It's like
The
from our
scientists
practical
don't know
experience.
what started the Big Bang. the theologians call it God, but neither really has proof of their claim.
I think what you're simplifying is that there was just a pop, a big bang, and then we don't know what the claim, we don't know how it started, but we've got millions of things happening in between. So if you ever look into kind of how DNA is replicated, like just for example, so if your DNA, by the way, is a computer program, like Bill Gates called it the most complicated computer program ever to exist. Like you don't ever think like, some game you play was just written by accident. It was like you can't even imagine it. So I'm saying, like, we're looking at if you look at anything in nature, it looks way too complicated. Just look at it in depth for a little bit. You go, that's way too complicated. Like if you look at, like I was talking about the replication process, just YouTube it. You'll literally see these microscopic walking robots, legs moving along, aiding the process of copying DNA. It's like insane, like literally microscopic robots doing the work. And that will be for anything you look at in nature. It's insanely crazy. You can literally see robots going around, and it's crazy to deny that could have been, or to believe that could have been made by accident. Now, you might go to, like, you might try to believe, you might say, oh, okay, all of that makes sense. All of that proves that God must exist, except for that one scenario, which is the beginning of time, which is God himself. And we're like little ants, right? All we're trying to do is what we're trying to do is believe what's reasonable. We're not trying to understand God and the whole universe. We're just looking at the things we know, the experiences we had. Do we know things make themselves known? They never make themselves. We've never had any experience of that. That's all.
In a weird way, right, I'll be honest with you, in a weird way, although I'm like technically an atheist, I do, and I have spent a lot of time wondering how on earth and where everything could come from. So in a way, I am sympathetic. I'll be honest with you. I don't like to go here because it like betrays my need for the evidence, but I'm sympathetic to this claim that you're telling me. I'm sympathetic to it, and so it does beg the question, where the heck, there's so much matter in the universe, where the heck could it all have come from, and how could it have had a beginning? And that may imply a supernatural origin. I don't know. However, even if I granted you that, and I'd be happy to do that for the argument's sake, grant you that it came from God. The problem then that I would have, Khaled, is that I just don't believe in all like the scriptural interpretations of the religions then that we have on earth that have been given to us by men claiming to have revelation, claiming to meet with angels or whatever. None of it works for me.
I would always go deal with one thing at a time. Do you believe in God? That's number one, right? Is it the more reasonable? Like you made some statements that, neither side has evidence. That's completely wrong. I mean, to say there's no evidence, right? Like look at anything in. I'm trying not to repeat myself, but after this, I'll send you the video, so you don't even have to make the effort. Just play the video and think could that have been made by accident? Like absolutely anything you look in nature, it's just too impossible for it to been made through accidental processes. Now, I was an atheist for a while, as I might have mentioned before, and I fell for this kind of illusion made through words that like, we've got infinite amount of time, and survival of the fittest. That kind of sounds good, right? But evolution, the way it's described, is actually a destructive process. It doesn't create things, right? It just says you die, you die, you die. That doesn't make things. Wind blowing around doesn't make things. In fact, if you put anything high tech, like a microchip out in the air, it's more likely to be destroyed because high tech things are delicate, right? Yeah. So
This
I don't
is
want to.
the entropy
Yeah, go on.
argument, isn't it? This is the entropy argument.
You simplify it too much. Like that's part of it. But just I'm going to send you the video. One of like even a drop of blood. I might have said this to you before. You like the argument that we have lots of time. That's wrong. We don't actually have mathematically. We don't have enough time to make a drop of blood. People think this is one of the many problems that people think. Oh, even the blood is simple. No, it's actually really high tech. Yeah, hemoglobin is really high tech. It takes like 22 no I can't remember, some ridiculous amount of enzymes, and enzymes are not random things. They're all these complicated structures that have to be all in order. It's so complicated that even a drop, and I'm being kind, I say a drop, it's not even a drop of blood, should have existed if it was given from the beginning of the universe to be made. Like, people don't understand how complicated these things are. So anyway, the point is, look at anything in nature. It's too complicated. It's way more complicated than any computer you've got. It's not reasonable to disbelieve in God. It's unreasonable. It takes a great deal of faith to disbelieve in God.
That is a claim that you make. I mean, look, the only thing that I would say, you touched upon the time thing, that the biologists explain this out as through the vast expanse of time. That is, this planet has been here, according to geology, 4 billion years. That is such a vast extent of time. I mean, we're talking about that we've been on the planet, in civilizationally making like cities and things for at the best 6,000 years. Probably only emerged from the jungle in like the last 100,000 years or whatever. So on this time scale that goes back, I know, a couple of billion years, that is
billion,
actually
14 billion. That is not enough time. So the hemoglobin thing is something that's oh my God, Dawkins himself brought up in the Blind Watchmaker, right? Okay, mathematically, you've only got like 10 to the, I can't remember, 50. You've like there's 10 to 50 atoms in the universe. The number of seconds I can't remember, or milliseconds in the universe for the universe has been alive. I mean, existing for, is I'm not even sure, like 10 to the 20 or something milliseconds, right? You would need 10 to the 400 or something milliseconds to create a drop of blood. I can't remember. I did the math at one point, or the math is available in his book in different places. Quite frankly, you need billions and billions of times the age of the universe to create blood. So I'm trying to get it. This is like, we have to get over this lack of or ignorance of the facts to believe that we actually have a lot of time. We don't have a fraction of the time needed to create life. Never mind, not even a drop of blood. I keep repeating that, but people don't realize that.
I believe that the refutation that a biologist would make, because I've heard a similar argument, whether you agree with it or not, I've heard a similar argument. I think Vox Day once made this argument from the religious side of things, that we've not had enough time for the complexity of life on Earth. But I think, so the biologist argument against this is that this misunderstands how life has got to this point via sexual reproduction. So this claim is based upon the idea that mutation alone would take this long. It would take we wouldn't have enough time via mutation alone. But it doesn't realize that when sexual reproduction kicked off, this kickstarted evolution in ways never seen before, and that rapidly escalated everything through the mixing, the direct mixing of DNA and genes through sexual reproduction, Vass started mixing things up much better. We're not biologists.
When we mix up
But
that DNA, it just mixes it up better, right? So kind of we don't have to even worry about forget survival of the fittest. This sexual reproduction just did extra magic.
no, we're talking about how can something end up where it is by mutation alone, by mutation
Sure.
alone, by mutation rates alone.
And your
It would
argument is
take
that sexual reproduction gives it extra magic, so that the selection process is even better than some sort of other random mutation or survival of the fittest kind of stuff.
I think there has been a long period on Earth. We can look back at the we can look back at the fossil record. We can see that way back, in the early stages that we can see were far less complex life, and we gradually went to more complex life, and that somehow happened via a process over time on the Earth, and I struggle to believe that it was an intelligent entity, like, I don't know, coming out and lying there, clicking his fingers and saying, "We're okay. Now we're going to have lizards. Now we're going to have fish. Now and come 100 million years later. Oh, now we'll have dinosaurs, etc."
Yeah. So I don't believe in a god that clicks his fingers. I do believe in a god that created this, the laws of laws of nature.
Oh yeah, we've been here before. You might actually believe in evolution. You just think that God started it, right?
No, I do believe in evolution. I just think
Right.
evolution is a force of the universe. Like God doesn't literally tinker with the things with fingers. Like that's just like people, God.
But did God seed the earth with a primordial goo and everything grew from it over time, or did he seed giraffes, elephants, humans, etc.?
I believe in the sort of primordial goo version of things. Like he didn't go, click, and there was a giraffe that suddenly appeared. No. So I think this ties back to why it's important to understand, like, the Ahmadiyya understanding. Like, we literally write books free. I'm going to post one that kind of goes through all of these arguments. Revelation, I'm going to post it in the a free book, Revelation, Rationality, Knowledge and Truth, maybe even that one. Just a random page in the book where you can go through all the kind of evolutionary arguments. So there you go, free book. Just posted in the chat, the live chat. So yeah, have a look. And the point is that, like, try to refute the argument in any way at all, and see that our approach is, and this is how we're different to a lot of the other Muslims. So a lot of the other Muslims will say there are certain things we can't explain, or they have certain interpretations, like there's like a flying horse that took Prophet Muhammad from this place to that place, and we don't believe in that kind of stuff. We refute it using the Quran itself. For example, the Quran says you can't go up, you can't fly to heaven, stuff like that, if you're a living human being. So I think the takeaway, because I want people to take away something from this, is that we don't believe in faith without reason, because God gave us a brain. And not only that, we produce free books, and all our books are for free, and we answer questions, and we give in-depth, scientific explanations, and refute, people like Richard Dawkins. Yeah, Richard Dawkins,
Yeah.
right? His book, his materials, like literally in the book that I've posted in the live chat, he goes through Richard Dawkins' arguments, our Khalifa, our religious leader. So that's the kind of nature. That's the nature of our religious leaders. We're very scientific, but very open. We welcome people to ask questions. all the time. We've got loads of TV channels and things which are all for free. Anybody can ask questions and stuff like that. So I suppose that's I think that's kind of important. We're not closed, we're not aggressive, and there's no reason. I don't know.
Well, it certainly sounds better than the head choppy, blowy uppy kind of Muslim. I'll be honest with you. So I mean,
Yeah.
I I'm down with that. If you're the reasonable kind of guys who are like, read my books, listen to my stories, here's my evidence, this is what I think about this, I believe I can convince you about this, it sounds a lot more reasonable than, the other stuff.
And if you don't agree, then that's between you and God sort of thing. We're not going to like, oh, you're useless, you're going to go to hell. We don't even know if you're going to go to heaven or hell. That's another thing. Like that's
we've got a head chopper in the chat. You see, no, you get the axe or whatever.
No, I get the head. Is that a head chopper? That's not an ordinary axe. That's a head chopping axe. Okay.
You see, you'd probably get it as much as me, really, wouldn't you, Khalid? Because
yeah,
but yeah.
In a lot of Muslim countries, yeah. Takeaways. So one thing I like to say that even if we don't have necessarily clear takeaways, I do think we're influenced by each other. So I value, we're spending time with each other and being reasonable, and we don't necessarily have to say, oh, I agree. Although I do think you are open, and I think we do agree on a number of things, right? Like for example, the immigration thing. I don't think random immigration is a good idea. You got to plan for your country, but I don't blame just the leaders as well. But that's another whole different discussion. We can have talk about what would be a better immigration policy. So anyway, I think we're having positive arguments, discussions. Let me just ask you one thing, since we've got a few minutes. Are you saying when you look at the universe, when you don't see any evidence of incredible organization that I'm trying to put it in the best way. Are you saying you don't see any evidence of spectacular organization that makes you think maybe there is a God?
I think I'll be honest with you, I do look at it. I look at the vastness of the universe as we know it, and I think that is such an enormous thing, and I wonder how it all came about. So this is where I have some sympathy with you, that perhaps there is a supernatural origin, but I'm just stuck on the part that I need evidence before I believe in something, and it has to be black and white. The modern day version of religion is essentially looking at everything and saying we live in a simulation.
Can we just watch a video? Because I'm not sure about the simulation thing. Just for the sake of people who are not going to watch the video, the DNA replication, I'm going to just show you the walking robot. Can we get to this?
Body. 50 to 70. It requires medical research. Called helicase. Helicase, literally, the other strand is more complicated because it runs together into a fiber known as chromatin cells.
I've seen it actually now that you've
seen the walking robot.
See,
it's
rubbish. There's a really cool. I just have to show you the walking robot. Maybe this one. Oh no! Please, walking robot. Just
the replisome that pulls apart the double
you will
helix
see it.
and makes an exact copy of each strand. The DNA to be copied enters the production line from the
Okay, we're almost there.
The blue ring-shaped molecule is the enzyme helicase, which unwinds the double helix into two strands.
Replicating
The leading strand is copied continuously.
DNA.
The lagging strand
There it is. Walking robots. Just the visual, not even
the
what.
first tree of life, which is his perception of how all the species, all living things on Earth are connected.
Just almost where I
evolutionary
can.
history,
Oh,
the
come
origin of
on.
species through natural
Somewhere
selection
here.
and divergence from an ancestral population. Even as a scientist, I used to go to lectures by
so
molecular
annoying.
biologists
Oh,
and find them completely incomprehensible with all the 200 different types of proteins, thousands of proteins, pass through chemicals aligned and mechanical.
ah, there we go.
It's molecular clockwork. This is how you work at the molecular
They're literally
scale.
walking.
So with a
It's
little
insane.
bit of
Look at look at that.
um,
That's
we've
just
got
crazy.
kinesins, which are the orange ones. They're
Anyway, just remember that and think about. No, God, are you sure about that? That's my thought. All right. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate your time. Don't want to take any more seconds. Thank you very much as always, everybody. Bye. Take care.
Good night.
Thank you for being here. Bye.
All right.